In this age of big tech censorship, we are now rapidly hurtling towards a future where a small handful of billionaires and multinational corporations will control all of our right to speak. We might even have reached that point already, and not one major leader here in Ireland seems to care one bit. This is Ben Scallan, and you're watching Gript Media. If you've been paying attention to the news at all this week, you probably will have seen that there is currently a severe big tech crackdown taking place, the likes of which the world has never seen before. And sure, censorship has been going on for years, and we basically all know that social media companies have strong left-wing political biases, that's a given. But this is on a new level. Anyone and everyone remotely to the right of Karl Marx is getting the axe, even up to and including the President of the United States himself. In theory, the most powerful man in the world, although that's now certainly being brought into question. If Mark Zuckerberg can shut up the president at will, then who really holds more power? But let's put a pin in that for now, we'll come back to it later. Donald Trump, who is legally still the president until January 20th, has been permanently banned from just about every mainstream platform known to man at this point, from his famous Twitter account to Facebook and Instagram, which are owned by the same company, Google and YouTube, which are owned by the same company, TikTok, Reddit, Snapchat, Shopify, so he can't sell merchandise, as well as payment processors such as GoFundMe, PayPal and Stripe, so he can't accept donations, Pinterest, multiple email service providers, so this man can't even email his supporters, Deutsche Bank and Signature Bank, who are cutting off all business with him, and even Spotify. Bloody Spotify. The man can't even listen to lo-fi hip-hop playlists in peace without being persecuted. What are they going to ban him from next? Minecraft? Accuse him of building too many walls? Now, obviously I'm joking, but really I shouldn't be, because this is serious. I'm just trying to diffuse the tension with a bit of levity. Now, at this point you might think, well, they have the right to ban whoever they want. They're a private company. Go make your own site if you don't like it. Which is illegally nonsense for a variety of reasons. They want to be a publisher and decide what they can have on their platform 1 minute, and then when you go to sue them when someone slanders you, they say, oh, you can't do that, we're just a platform. They need to pick one or the other. But really that's besides the point. The real issue here is that when you do go and set up a free speech app like Parler, which was meant to be a free speech alternative to Twitter, Apple took it off the App Store and Amazon removed its hosting service, taking it down indefinitely. Parler wasn't even pro-Trump, it was just for free speech. Anyone can say what they like as long as it doesn't break the law. And yet it was removed. So they say, go make your own app, and then when you do, they strangle it in the crib to make sure that you can't speak there either. They said, start to enforce all these speech rules imposed by us or we're shutting it down. Parler refused to comply, so they were terminated. Now notice something very important here. You see that all of these massive tech conglomerates and billionaires are working in unison with each other. It's not like Trump just got banned from 1 or 2 sites for violating an individual app's terms of service. This small handful of major corporations literally coordinated and conspired, in the truest sense of the word, to erase as many of this man's avenues of communication as possible all at once. People are even talking about digitally removing Trump from his cameo in the movie Home Alone 2. I kid you not. That might sound funny to some people, like it's all a big silly joke, but think about what it really means. They are literally trying to purge all records of this man that could defend him or paint him in a favorable light. It's clear that the mainstream media hate him. CNN, MSNBC, ABC, Politico, the New York Times, the BBC, Sky News, all of the Irish media, basically you name it. They despise this man. They're not going to give him a fair shake or tell his side of the story at all. And now with a 1-2 punch, the social media giants have teamed up to mass ban him from expressing his own views or defending himself. They're salting the earth and leaving no 2 bricks standing on each other to make sure that this man's legacy is permanently destroyed. And he's not the only one. Thousands of conservative or right-leaning accounts are being banned off the internet, including Ireland's Computing Forever, Dave Cullen, who had tens of thousands of YouTube subscribers before being terminated in the last few days, just to name one example. Some of the people being banned are perfectly mainstream and reasonable. Some of them, of course, had some nutty, kooky conspiracy views. But last I checked, having weird or irrational views isn't a crime. If it was, Eamon Ryan would be behind bars long ago. The point is, people are allowed to believe things that seem to be bizarre or stupid to the rest of us, and it's not justifiable to ban them for that. The reason given for the mass purge of conservatives, or really just anyone who isn't far left, is they say that the handful of protesters who stormed the American Capitol last week showed that there is a risk of political violence being egged on via the internet, and that risk needs to be urgently stamped out. For those who don't know, long story short, during a massive 100,000 person Trump rally at the Capitol in Washington DC last week, a crowd of Trump supporters broke into the Capitol building to protest the election certification process. None of them were armed, they weren't brandishing guns or weapons or anything, but despite this, one of them was shot dead by police and they were all forced out, and now many of them are facing criminal prosecution, which is understandable. I mean, you break the law, you get in trouble. Love it or hate it, that's life. So to prevent something like this happening in future, the social media companies say they need to silence anyone who could potentially provoke the same reaction, including Donald Trump. Twitter bans Trump, citing risk of violent incitement. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, well, that sounds reasonable. I mean, Trump must have said something terrible or called on his supporters to engage in some sort of violent revolution. And certainly, reading the media headlines, that's exactly what you would be led to believe. Capitol siege. Trump's words directly led to violence, Patel says. How Trump's words, rhetoric have incited violence, including Capitol breach. Arrest Trump. He directly incited violence. So what exactly did Trump say prior to this event? Let's take a listen to part of his speech.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
What was that? He told people to peacefully and patriotically make their way over? Let's hear that one more time. I can't believe that the media would tell us a lie about something.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
March over to peacefully make your voice heard. So, in other words, the notion that he incited violence before the rally is totally and provably false. But what about during the Capitol siege? After the chaos broke out, maybe he was egging it on or something. Let's take a look. I am asking for everyone at the US Capitol to remain peaceful. No violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you. Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful. He even asked his supporters to go home peacefully. Okay, so he didn't egg on the violence while it was happening. But what about after? Maybe he refused to condemn it later or something.
I would like to begin by addressing the heinous attack on the United States Capitol. Like all Americans, I am outraged by the violence, lawlessness, and mayhem. I immediately deployed the National Guard and federal law enforcement to secure the building and expel the intruders. America is and must always be a nation of law and order. The demonstrators who infiltrated the Capitol have defiled the seat of American democracy. To those who engaged in the acts of violence and destruction, you do not represent our country. And to those who broke the law, you will pay.
Okay, so let me get this straight. He urged peace beforehand. He condemned the violence during the Capitol siege, and then afterwards he condemned it again. We have condemnations before, during, and after. So, to put it another way, the people accusing him of inciting violence are provably telling blatant and barefaced lies to the general public, as are the social media giants using this as an excuse to silence a sitting president. But the facts won't stop the media from pumping this garbage out ad nauseum and brainwashing people who don't read past the headlines. You might say he wasn't careful with his words and someone took it up the wrong way. Okay, that's an opinion, but being ham-fisted and a bit clumsy with your words is not the same as intentionally inciting violence, and Trump can't control every single individual in a 100,000 person crowd or what they do. But of course, the media know that if you repeat the narrative enough that Trump was deliberately stoking violence and is some sort of terrorist militia leader, that idea will stick in the minds of the general public, whether it's true or not, and then you can justify doing anything to him and his supporters. You can ban him from all social media platforms, you can impeach him, you can put him in jail. The sky's really the limit when you have a massive tech and media monopoly on your side and the magical power of lying. And with the opposition all banned, nobody is there to push back or tell the truth. Now look, I'm not saying that you have to support Donald Trump. You might even hate him and think he's the worst president of all time. That's your right, you're entitled to that view, and this video is not to convince you otherwise. But whether you love or hate Trump, we all need to realize that the President of the United States or any country should be able to communicate with the people. Right wing, left wing, centrist, it doesn't matter. A country doesn't work without communication. I mean, think of the murderous psychos who are allowed on Twitter and have accounts right now. The Chinese Communist Party has various Twitter accounts. A brutal Marxist regime which currently has millions of Muslims in concentration camps and bragged about sterilizing the women. That's allowed on Twitter. The Kremlin, which is being routinely accused of having political opponents assassinated. That's allowed on Twitter. Iran's Ayatollah Khamenei, Turkish authoritarian leader Recep Erdogan, North Korean propaganda. Even Black Lives Matter accounts are allowed after a summer of rioting that burned down half the American country. And all of this is allowed, but Donald Trump is not. What more proof do you need that this is not about inciting violence? This is nothing more than an excuse to snuff out this man who poses a threat to their power politically. Even people like Angela Merkel, of all people, have started coming out against this, as has the French government and even the President of Mexico. In fact, even left-wing celebrities, who I would normally have no time for, see the problem here. As left-wing model Emily Ratajkowski said, "Anyone else feel like a proper amount of Capitol Police being absent or letting Trump people in and providing insane visuals of MAGA dudes on the floor of the House was wildly convenient to justifying big tech's rollout of censorship? This gives Facebook, tech and Zuck, as in Mark Zuckerberg, the most power. If he can shut the president up, he can shut any of us up. My concern is that this gives big tech the opportunity to shut down quote-unquote leftist extremists who are important political organizers." And she's absolutely right. This is a threat to everyone. Left wing, right wing, it doesn't matter what your beliefs are. Why would you want a handful of billionaires to control the world's information? Aren't the left supposed to be opposed to big business? They're all about Marxist revolution and fighting capitalism and power to the people until the richest Fortune 500 companies in the world decide to smash people that they don't like, and suddenly they become lapdogs for big business. I mean, really, this is who you've chosen to lead the Marxist revolution. Good luck with that. Some people say, who cares about tech censorship? We had traditional ads and flyers before the web and we can use them again. This is a ludicrous argument for one simple reason. The world has moved on. On one hand, you have a massive global tech conglomerate. Every TV station, every newspaper, every radio station, every government and NGO, the EU, the UN and more, all of which control the information flow for 7 billion people. And on the other hand, you have what? A bunch of lads going around door to door on bikes with a stack of crumpled self-printed leaflets because they're banned from everywhere else? That's a losing battle and we all know it. We have to get real, and so far, nobody in the Irish establishment seems to care. Several of these companies are even based in Ireland for tax purposes, and yet our leaders have nothing at all to say about them silencing Irish citizens while they're here. In fact, the government are trying to push through hate speech laws that silence the Irish people even more. You can't demonstrate in public because of the lockdown, you can't say anything that the government deems as hateful, and if you go to Twitter to complain about any of that, you get banned. So what the hell are people supposed to do? And while our government are sitting around allowing or facilitating all of this, countries like Poland in Eastern Europe are proposing to bring in massive multi-million euro fines for companies that censor legal speech. As in, the Polish government are actually standing up for the civil rights of their citizens. If you want to live in a world run by Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos, where unelected billionaires get to decide what you can see, what information you can read, and which candidates you can support, then by all means, cheer for this censorship wave. But if you want to be free, then you have to demand something changes, and it has to change right now. Please like and share this video, and if you enjoyed it, please consider signing up for a monthly donation via the link on screen to help us produce more content like this. Alternative media like Gript needs all the assistance it can get, and every donation goes a long way. As always, thanks for watching.